All right, it's Monday afternoon. We're coming home from Wrestlemania 40 on the highway right now. Already left Philadelphia, about 2 hours behind us, 2 hours to go, about till we get home. But to recap, obviously, you followed us on social media, hopefully. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to go over and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Heel to the Face. That's where you're going to get all our content last night. The video of Cody Rhodes, John Cena coming out, The Undertaker, the whole 9 yards. But a few takeaways from definitely being there in person versus obviously watching on television. A few takeaways. We'll start with some of the production issues. They've had this production issue in the past, and what's weird is they had it last night, but they showed that they could easily not have it because they went back and forth with it. I'm talking about some of the storm lights that sit over the ring that face the crowd. I don't know if you heard it at home, but there was lots of chants, "We can't see, turn off the lights." They had those chants at WrestleMania 35. I imagine they had them in other WrestleManias, but what was weird about obviously this storm light, in all honesty, is that the fact that they didn't have it on night 1 of WrestleMania. So night 1 of WrestleMania, no light issues. Night 2 of WrestleMania, second part, no light issues. So for a few of the matches, like the AJ Styles LA Knight match, which seemed to be hijacked in the upper decks at least by these crowd chants about the storm lights. So I don't know why they had to have them on for the fact that they could easily turn them off, which they ended up doing. Some other big takeaways from WrestleMania 40. Clearly, obviously, Cody Rhodes is going to win when you watch all the stuff that happened last night. I mean, with The Rock coming out and with The Undertaker and John Cena and the whole bloodline thing coming to an end there, they really couldn't find a way for Cody Rhodes not to win last night. But one thing I find unique about this whole situation, and maybe you forgot about this at home, or maybe you had this thought way back in the day when the bloodline was just forming, was the idea that the bloodline came to an end without the bloodline ending. The Roman Reigns reign came to an end without the bloodline ending. I was always under the impression that when this came to an end, the bloodline would dissolve, meaning it would be Solo, it would be Jimmy, kind of everyone turning on Roman and leaving him all by himself, and that's how this would end. But Jimmy came out last night, night number 2, and tried to help. Solo came out. The Rock came out. So all these people still are on Team Roman Reigns. So the bloodline, while maybe championship-less right now, is still not dissolved. So I think that is one thing I wasn't expecting. I thought when the Roman Reigns title reign came to an end, it was the same as the bloodline coming to an end, but not necessarily the case. So Team Solo, Team Jimmy, Paul Heyman, they still seem to be on the side of Roman Reigns. We'll see what necessarily that means going forward. We'll see what is, going forward for Roman Reigns in general. Obviously, is he going to take some time off? We all know he's going to, but is he going to show up on Raw later tonight? Or is he just going to take some time off and reemerge maybe in the summertime? We will find out. Twitter question, so go to our Twitter account and add Heel to the Face and answer this question. But if one night WrestleMania was like last night, meaning a 4-hour show, 6 matches, everything banged, would you want that to be one night WrestleMania, or do you still prefer the 2-night? Because obviously this year a lot of people are saying that maybe night 1 a little under delivered, and then night 2 of WrestleMania was a little bit better. So if we just had one night of WrestleMania, not 8 hours, not 7.5 hours, not a crazy length WrestleMania like we're used to in the past, but just more similar to what we're used to going back to the early 20s of WrestleMania, a 4-hour show, 7 matches, start at 7, over by 11, something like that. Would you want that to be a one-night WrestleMania? Would you be acceptable if that was, or do you still, no matter what, even if the shows were 3 hours long and all the matches were good, you still want it to be 2 nights? And I also think, too, that the issue, obviously, with 2 nights, while I'm starting to come around to it, is the fact that, it's clear that night 2, in which everybody's saying, both based on the weather, because people didn't freeze, versus night 1, but obviously the main event of WrestleMania was on night number 2. So it showed that really, it's really one elongated show. It didn't feel like one WrestleMania and 2 WrestleManias. It felt like one long WrestleMania. If you went to WrestleMania, you really had to go to both nights because, you don't know what you're going to get. So it would stink if you only went to one night and you didn't get, essentially the main event. And even Triple H said it in the press conference. Night 1 set the table for night 2. So no one wants to go to a WrestleMania that's just a table setter for a future night of WrestleMania, right? I didn't go to WrestleMania 23 because it was the build-up for WrestleMania 23 and a half, right? You want to go to the WrestleMania you're going to. You want to see all the moments. So essentially, like last night, WrestleMania night number 2 was all the big moments. WrestleMania night number 1 definitely had some big moments, but as Triple H said, it's really just the table setter. So it wasn't really, like a lot of people say, 2 equal shows, 2 parts that are, on the same plane of WrestleMania. Night 2 had 3 champions, or essentially with Damian Priest now 4 champions in the main titles get crowned, right? You had Drew McIntyre beating Seth Rollins, Damian Priest then beating Drew McIntyre, Bayley beating Io Sky, and then Cody Rhodes at the end winning the match, becoming the undisputed champion. So night 2 really felt like a WrestleMania all on its own. But what do you think? Obviously, you still want the 2-night situation where maybe even if one night's weak and maybe it's one elongated card, you still like it over 2 nights, or maybe do you just want one solid 4-hour show? And also, what is next for Roman Reigns, right? Like I said, the bloodline didn't necessarily dissolve. What do you think is next for Roman Reigns? Other than that, I think last night obviously was great. And one thing that was definitely a big surprise last night, I thought, was the 6-man Philadelphia street fight that had Bubba Ray Dudley as the referee and Snoop Dogg as a special guest commentator, if you will. I think that delivered in the same spot more than the Dominic Mysterio and Santos Escobar versus Rey Mysterio tag team that happened on night number 1. I think it was a similar idea, but I think that delivered more, and I think it delivered more even if you want to compare it to the 6-woman tag match that we saw on night number 1. Better than that. I do say Jimmy and Jay delivered on night number 1 for sure. Obviously, Becky and Rhea, that was a big time moment on night number 1. And I also think, Sammy and Gunther was a big moment on night number 1 of WrestleMania. But, I do wonder, what night do you think is better? I think most people are going to say it's night number 2. What do you expect to happen tonight on Monday Night Raw? That's another a big one. I'm guessing, as I said on my Instagram reel, I'm thinking very similar to the NXT days, right? When the NXT champion would lose, a lot of times that meant that they were going to pop out and join the main roster. So I think Gunther losing the Intercontinental Championship, I think maybe that he pops out and becomes, the next challenger for Cody Rhodes. Obviously, with all of these big international shows coming up, you're gonna get Gunther and you're gonna get Drew McIntyre. I think a lot more involved with these big international shows popping up. So you can imagine they're going to be a little more involved when it comes to the upcoming WWE schedule. And what do you think about this new era, essentially, of WWE? Now, I know, everyone's saying that this is the first WrestleMania with Triple H fully involved. But remember last year, Triple H, was essentially the creative guy. Vince McMahon was still there, but Triple H was still very much into the creative. And if you ask me, as somebody who's attended all these WrestleManias, I think from a production standpoint, I'm actually going to give it to last year's WrestleMania. I mean, maybe it's just LA feels bigger, SoFi Stadium feels bigger, but I might give it to the bigger feel. Now, the matches themselves, mainly because of The Rock, felt a little bit bigger this year, but I think, like I said, production-wise and kind of the feel in the town, it might have felt a little bit bigger last year. So even though everyone's saying this is the new era, this is Triple H in charge, this is, a whole different thing. Remember, Triple H was a creative guy last year. Obviously, like I said, Vince was there. Triple H was very integral last year. Nick Khan was very integral last year. So don't sleep on WrestleMania 39. And, I understand every year they're making more money, and I think a lot of that is just because financially things are cost more money, but they sold out SoFi twice last year, right? I think they did great with merchandise last year. And while technically, like I said, prices go up, so that means technically revenue goes up, I think you could say WrestleMania last year was, you can't deny its success, right? We're not comparing this year's WrestleMania versus WrestleMania 11. I think last year was pretty on par, and if this year's WrestleMania even tied last year's WrestleMania, I don't think they would think that's unsuccessful. I think just generally revenue is going to go up and up and up because of the fact that the price of things goes up and up and up, and some of these other entities, like WWE World are entered in, they go up. And Philadelphia, to be fair, is a little bit better of a wrestling town than Los Angeles, but if you're going to host a big event and you want, the biggest cachet, LA is probably a little bit better than Philadelphia. But what are some of your takeaways from WrestleMania now that we're about 12 hours after the show has concluded the next day? Make sure to follow us on all our social medias. Like I said, we were there all weekend long. We start out with GCW on Thursday, then WWE World and the Hall of Fame on Friday night, and obviously both nights of WrestleMania. But also, we didn't get the announcement of where WrestleMania is next year. So it still seems like it might be in flux. Where do you think WrestleMania is going next year? I know Minneapolis was the front runner, but it seems like it's not a for sure thing. It's so strange because for the previous years, we've known where WrestleMania was more than a year in advance. WrestleMania 2024, the one we just left, we knew about that since, I think, August of 2022. So a good 18 months prior, we knew about that. And then, obviously, right after COVID came to an end, in January of 2021, they gave us what WrestleMania we're getting in 2021, 2022, and then even in 2023. So LA, we knew about a good 26 months in advance before even the LA WrestleMania. So we're less than 12 months away from next year's WrestleMania. We still don't know where it is yet. So kind of curious. Where do you think it's going to be? Is it Minneapolis? Is it Las Vegas? Is it London? But follow us along. Obviously, we post every single week. We're on our way home from WrestleMania 40. Cody Rhodes has finished the story, but what is next for him?